Welcome to the Introverted Misfit podcast with me, Caroline Smith, where you'll discover how to become a socially confident version of yourself while embracing your inner misfit. Chances are that you've gone your whole life thinking you have to fake being someone you're not just to fit in. You've got to exude lively, extroverted sociability to have the social life you've always wanted. Well, not here you don't. On this podcast, we'll discuss the different ways you can connect and communicate like the introverted misfit that you are. Enjoy the show, Misfit! Hello to all of you who are tuning into this episode of the Introverted Misfit podcast. If we haven't met before, my name is Caroline Smith, the founder and owner of my business, The Introverted Misfit. And I am the quote-unquote misfit behind this podcast, brand, everything. I am a social confidence coach for introverts who find socializing to be tricky and nerve-wracking and want to change that without acting extroverted or being socially perfect. I just wanted to say that introduction because I recently realized that as my podcast audience is growing slowly but surely, I don't always make it a point to start off by saying what I do, who I am, and what my business services are meant to do. So I just wanted to introduce myself officially if you're a new listener and reintroduce myself if you've been listening for a while. But on to the topic of this podcast episode. You know, a while ago, about 8 months ago, I hosted a workshop called Dating with Confidence for Quiet, Quirky Women. It was tailored for late bloomers who were a little bit late to the dating game because of their social fears and social difficulties, whether that meant really shy, socially anxious, socially awkward, or on the spectrum like myself. The main topic of discussion in that workshop was really focusing on the basic social skills needed to get a man's attention, how to tell if he's interested in you, and how to show him that you're interested. Because, of course, I am not a dating and relationship coach. I am a social confidence coach. So it was talking about the social aspect of dating. But another portion of that workshop focused on some of the more deeper topics related to dating and finding love, including one particular topic, feeling so unlovable because you have never really had romantic interest, genuine romantic interest, that you become desperate for just any old man to give you a little bit of attention, even if it's the wrong type. Like a man who doesn't really like you that much, but he's pretending like he does so he can get what he wants. He's being really disrespectful, really inconsiderate, all of those really icky things that you can think of when you think of someone who is just out to do no good and doesn't really mean you well. He's not the kind of man or partner that you want to involve yourself with, because he's doing these things that, I kid you not, are literally going to ruin your mental health if you don't know what you're getting yourself into. That's a nice way I can put it. Well, for the most part, that concept of longing for someone's attention, even if it's not good, can be true for other types of relationships. Platonic, professional, familial, romantic, of course, and any other type of relationship that you can think of. The common theme is that you are willing to accept poor behavior from the people in your life because you just want them to stick around. You don't want to feel abandoned again if this relationship, friendship, business partnership, whatever, doesn't work out. So when you do finally find people who you think are your friends, but then it turns out that they're not really great friends, or maybe they were really never true friends to begin with, it doesn't matter. You might be more willing to stick around and keep considering them your friends because you feel like you can't find any other friends. So these are the type of friends who are constantly sneak dissing you, excluding you from hanging out with them. Maybe they're being kind of cold towards you when you come around, and but they're being nice to everybody else. Maybe they poke fun at you a lot and they try to excuse it by saying it's just a joke, even though the joke keeps happening over and over and over again, and it seems to only be directed towards you. Or even just if they just want to keep you around because they know that they can use you when it's convenient for them. They know when they say jump, you'll say how high with no pushback. And if you are one of my fellow Spectrum listeners, there's an extra layer to this, as I'm sure you have experienced, because there are some scenarios in which you're having to decipher people's behavior and intentions so that you can figure out if they're being nice or being mean or what their true intentions are. And that in itself is honestly a journey all in itself. And of course, as a fairly new entrepreneur myself, my business is almost 2 years. Oh, wow. It's almost 2 years old this month. I did not even realize that. I might have to put out a podcast episode celebrating that anniversary. But I'm learning that professional connections can turn out that way too. Sometimes you'll encounter people who want access to your platform and the things that you have to offer them professionally. But if you ask them for something in return, it's crickets. They don't really want to help you out for whatever reason. Or you'll encounter people who behave really unprofessionally, but they'll still accept any kind of help that they can receive from you behind the scenes. So without going off on too many different tangents here about different ideas, hopefully you get the picture. This is a common human behavior, human scenario that can and will happen in almost every sector of life where there are people involved. I've told this story before, but when I was in middle school, I found myself surrounded by a lot of popular kids. Popular, kind of stuck up, dare I say rich? I think, yeah, they were kind of they were the group of my hometown whose family all did very well for themselves and had money, and they all just kind of hung out together. So I was surrounded by these types of people just by way of the classes and the extracurricular activities that I was in. I was on the cross country team for a few years. I was in a club called Discovery Kids, which is a kind of a separate class or club for the more advanced students. I was on the tennis team for a couple of years in high school. And of course, I have to state the obvious here. Most of those activities and classes, as you can imagine, were predominantly white, which meant that I was usually either the only or one of the only few non-white kids, black kids. And that kind of contributed even more to my feeling like an other at that stage in my life. Now, I have to tell you, that's not a problem for me now. Now that I'm an adult and I've got a mostly fully functioning frontal lobe and brain, I have really grown to have my own sense of self-confidence and self-esteem. So that sort of thing does not bother me anymore. I feel very comfortable in almost any room I go to, no matter who is in the room. But you know how these things are when you're a kid and your brain is still developing. You don't want to be othered. You don't want to be outcasted and feel like nobody wants to talk to you. And then being an undiagnosed autistic child on top of that just added to all of my mental angst. So anyway, I'm surrounded by all of these popular kids. And so what do? I try to fit in with them, of course. I try to get their attention, join their conversations, talk like them, copy their mannerisms, and then they reject me. But because I'm desperate for just someone to talk to me and consider me a friend, I keep trying. Even though some of them just straight up told me, you're weird. And I think one girl at one point in time actually just asked me, can you stop talking to us? I guess that's how weird they thought I was. And a similar thing happened to me in high school, where I would hang out with people who I really thought were my friends. And then they would low-key bully me in front of other people. And I just didn't say anything and let it slide and still tried to be their friend. I remember this one time, my band class traveled to San Antonio, Texas for a trip. And this one day I wore a new hairstyle that I quite liked. I actually liked it. And someone who I considered an acquaintance, at least, maybe not a friend, but we had run-ins before, said that I looked like a man in front of like 12 other people that we were all hanging out with. And he and his friends laughed about it, and I let it slide. I didn't say anything. And then, if you can believe it, that same person thought it would be funny to say a very, I would say racist, maybe the right word is racially insensitive, joke towards me, about me, in front of other people. So you know how Texas is all about rodeos and westerns and cowboys and stuff. So we had gone to a rodeo type of show where this man was showing off some cool tricks with a whip and a lasso. And this guy says to me, shouldn't you be out there in front of the whip? And obviously, I'm hoping that you know what he's referring to when he says this. And of course, like the quiet, docile girl that I was, I didn't say anything. And I continued to be nice to him for the remainder of my time in that high school. Why? Because I didn't have any friends. And so every time he felt like coming back around and being nice to me for whatever reason, I would be nice right back to him. And I had some other similar, minus the racial aspect, I had some other similar instances with the girls who I thought were my friends. I mean, as you know, especially if you're a woman, you know how catty girls can be and how cliquish they can be and kind of underhanded mean versus boys and men who are just kind of outright mean, you know? Anyway, I just want to slap some sense into that past version of myself because there is no way in the world I would just sit by and let someone talk to me like that today. No matter what the nature of the disrespect was, no matter what race they were, I would never just sit there and just take it and continue to be nice to them at that. And then I had my share of run-ins with the other black kids in my school. Now, I talked about my issues fitting in culturally with the black population in my school in one of my earlier podcast episodes. It was titled Weird Black Kid Syndrome. You should definitely go listen to that if you think it resonates with your experience. But we had some pretty major cultural differences that got in the way of us understanding one another. To make a long story short, they said I acted too white, quote unquote, too white, to be considered one of them. I talked too white. I dressed too white. I did too well in school. I was too smart, which, hello, major internalized racism there when you as a black person think that black people aren't capable of being smart. But again, I am not going to go off on that tangent. They said my family acted too white, a whole bunch of things. And so sometimes I would find myself trying to change my behavior to be more acceptable more acceptable to them. And race aside, whatever race you are, whatever religion, culture you are, I'm sure that you can relate to some aspect of it, some aspect to the, just not really fitting in and feeling like you have to change who you are and change the core of who you are and what you believe just to be accepted by wider society. Wider society. That's WIDER, not whiter. So yeah, I would change my behavior to be more acceptable to them. I would try to talk more like them. I would pretend like I knew what they were talking about, even when I didn't at all. And I was just losing myself trying to fit in with people who didn't want me around. And as you can probably guess, that behavior just got me laughed at even more and rejected even more. And if you are one of my Spectrum listeners, I know for a fact you resonate with that concept. You know exactly what that feels like to have to do that your whole life and kind of manage these feelings of liking who you actually are, who you naturally are, but also feeling the need to change every aspect of you and your communication just to fit in. So whether your situation is an exact match to mine or just conceptually similar to this idea of seeking the wrong type of attention and accepting disrespectful behavior just because you want someone to be in your life, it's all the same at the base of it. The core concept is the same. And the rest of this episode is going to explore the single primary way I think you can stop seeking validation from people who do not mean you well and start attracting the kind of people into your life who respect you and actually like being around you. Imagine that. And what is the single primary way that I'm going to talk about? It's that oh so popular S word that you probably hear a lot about in online spaces nowadays, self-worth. Or should I say a healthy sense of self-worth? Because I have certainly met people who have an inflated sense of self-worth, which is not fun for anyone involved. Self-worth is the belief that you have inherent value as a person, and it's the acknowledgement that you are worthy of love, respect, and belonging just because you are human. No matter your race, religion, achievements, failures, disability, ability, social status, economic standing, etc. In the context of this conversation, it means that you're not willing to accept poor treatment from others just because you really want them to like you or to be your friend or to date you or to be in your life in any capacity. It means you have enough self-worth to speak up for yourself when you feel like you're being picked at or thrown under the bus, or it could mean you have enough self-respect to just walk away without even saying a word. I have been in situations like that too, where the disrespect was just way too prevalent, too brazen and consistent that it wasn't even worth the conversation. And I quite literally just removed those people from my space in my life in every sense of the word, and I never looked back. And that is the power of having a healthy sense of self-worth and knowing how to act on it. Your life is going to change when you know the value of your self-worth. The types of people who you attract into your life are going to change. Your dating life is going to change if you're in that stage of life right now. Your current relationships are going to transform. They're either going to get better for you and the other person, or they will cease to exist. Because as you will learn, some people don't like the fact that you finally have boundaries and standards for the people who you give access to yourself. So now, how do you get there? How do you get to that point of having a healthy sense of self-worth? Well, I won't lie to you. It's not a quick fix. It is a journey. And I don't know if it's ever really completely done until you're dead and gone, honestly. It's a journey to retrain your brain and rewire those neural pathways in this way when you're so used to not having self-worth and letting people walk all over you. But it's a journey that is well worth taking, in my opinion, for all of the reasons that I just talked in-depthly about. Now, if this journey is something that you are ready to embark on, as far as your self-confidence and your social confidence goes, I would love to help you with that. Like I said in the introduction of this episode, I am a social confidence coach for introverts who have felt like social misfits for their entire lives. And they want to become more confident in social situations without acting extroverted and without being socially perfect. That is what I help people do in my private one-on-one coaching. And building your sense of self-worth, just like I talked about all throughout this episode, is really woven into every aspect of the work that I do. Because self-worth is a part of having any type of confidence, including confidence in your social abilities. And if that sounds like something you need in your life right now, I would love to talk more about how I can help you along your social confidence journey. So if you're interested, you can book a free connection call with me using the link in the description of this episode. Or if you want to read more about my one-on-one program, Communicate with Quiet, Quirky Confidence, you can go to theintrovertedmisfit.com/coaching, and you can learn more about it. And then you can book a free call with me from that page as well. There's a button at the top of that page that says book a free call. And as usual, every link that I mentioned in this episode will be in that description. So you can always head down there and it'll take you exactly where you need to go. That's all for today's episode. As always, if you enjoyed this talk, please don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button. Leave a review and or a comment, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify podcasts, or Apple podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from, and share this podcast with a friend. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. Hey, Misfit. If you enjoyed today's show, there's more where that came from. I want to invite you to join the Introverted Misfit newsletter so that you'll never miss an episode. In addition to being notified about new podcast episodes every week, you'll receive more value-packed content from me that will nurture your inner misfit and help you find and manage your very own introvert-friendly community. You can find the link in the description, the show notes, or you can go directly to theintrovertedmisfit.com/newsletter. I'll see you there.